Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Hello, welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton, and this is episode number 81, in which I discuss involuntary maintenance. So I heard this term. It's a hilarious term to me, involuntary maintenance, but it's very descriptive. When I mentioned to my good friend, Mike Berta, once upon a time, that I was in a stall. And what is a stall? A stall is a period of time in which you're not seeing the scale move when you feel like you should be seeing the scale move. And he says, well, it's just involuntary maintenance. And like light bulbs, they may have been time delayed, but like that is such a useful phrase. Because what it's saying is you're maintaining your weight. You're in a period of maintenance. The issue is, because maintenance proves itself, right? If you're maintaining, you're in maintenance. It's a good reality check. And then it's involuntary. You don't think you should be doing that. You don't think that's what the result should be. Now, if I was constantly overeating by my judgment, I would understand why I was not losing weight. And I would expect that I wouldn't be in maintenance either, that I might be gaining weight. But if I was just slightly chronically overeating, I would have an expectation that I would maintain, right? And then I wasn't. I was thinking I should be losing weight, and I wasn't. So the maintenance was involuntary. And that framing really opens up a wedge of light into a place that can get very dark. Often when we find ourselves in a stall, which is involuntary maintenance, we are very frustrated because when our actions and our results don't line up, or when I should say, when our expected results and our actual results don't line up, we have to look at our actions and say, what's gone wrong here? Because the actions, those are the bridge between the expected and the actual. And the reality is for many of us, we're not eating very much, or we're not eating very much that we can see, and this should work, and why isn't this working? And we get very frustrated. And that involuntary maintenance feels very aggressive, like it feels like an insult, right? So, this brings me back to something I've talked about over and over again, which is the need to understand how your body works and understand there is such a thing as metabolic adaptation. And how do they define insanity? It's taking the same steps over and over again and expecting the outcome to be different. So I want to do this episode about the term involuntary maintenance because I think it can be very, very helpful to adjust your way of thinking. Because I've had clients say, I don't understand why XYZ isn't working because XYZ used to work. Well, times have changed. The past is past. And new times, new you, new progression, they call for new measures sometimes. That doesn't mean we forget about what happened in the past. We build on what happened in the past. But we remember that we're not in the same place. When I first started keto, what worked for me doesn't work for me now. And by work, I would define that as causes body fat loss, right? That's how I defined work at the beginning. I would still define that as working if that's my goal. But what works, what is good, those are all qualified by what the actual goal is. If my goal was to gain weight, what I did at the beginning of keto would not work because I was not gaining weight, right? But you have to think that the metabolic state you were in a year, 2, 3, 4, whatever time period ago is not the metabolic state you're in now. The age you are is different. The hormonal state you are is different. all things can be completely different even 6 months later. It like I will write down all the details of every single thing I'm doing, and then I can just use that as a template to rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. It's a fool's errand to think that that's going to be the pattern. Now, the things that worked, they're going to have a tendency to keep working. The way that suited you will still have this. You're still the same general person, right? Those things will still have a connection, a reality, but the specific details are going to be different. You are in a smaller body, maybe. You are just in a different place. So the nuance is going to have to shift. As an example, when I first started keto, I was very insulin resistant compared to how I am now. And carbs were much more impactful to me then. If I ate very many, I got very hungry. I found that the fewer the carbs, the better. And there was a period of time at which carnivore was like really awesome for me. So all those things are in the past. Now, shocking to find out, I do much better both hunger-wise, emotion-wise, enjoying my food-wise on a slightly higher carb. It's not a high carb, but slightly more carbs, more salads, more lettuce, more fiber than I used to do. Like fiber used to be my enemy. And now that actually does make me feel a little fuller to have a big, bulky, fibrous kind of salad or something like that. Whereas I don't get as full just from pure fat, though I still love it. Now I don't know, I'm going to guess my microbiome may have shifted a little bit. By the way, most research about microbiome, we only know the very tip of the iceberg. And so I'm saying that with a grain of salt and with absolutely no testing. Just simply saying, my digestive system seems to react differently to these things. My hunger levels react different to these things. And I'm just using me as an example because I'm the only one here right now. But I do see this happening in all sorts of people, that over time, as your body shifts, you will shift and the approach you need to take will shift. And I have gotten really far off afield from involuntary maintenance. But to come back around to the point is I will say that certain phrases are going to be very helpful for you. And so if you find yourself in a stall, I feel like the word stall can be very mysterious. So, right, like you're driving your car and your car stalls. And if you're not somebody that knows much about cars, you're like, I don't know what happened. It just stalled. It just stalled. The engine isn't working. It's not turning over. And it can be very similar in terms of fat loss. When you say I'm stalled, it really means I'm not getting the results that I expect to get, right? Because if you just were not eating the way you thought you needed to eat, you'd say I've fallen off my diet. I'm not eating the way that I think I should eat, right? You wouldn't say I'm stalled. Stall implies a little bit of a mystery. Like, I don't understand why I'm stalled is a very common phrase. I've yet to meet someone who said, I understand exactly why I'm stalled, because then they would explain what was wrong instead of saying stalled. But involuntary maintenance, it acknowledges in the phrase that you're not getting the result you think you should be getting, but based on the outcome, clearly the problem is your actions are not matching your desired outcome. So what we need to do then is not always just try harder, right? Try harder is a useless phrase. Try harder. Thanks. Not helpful. But get curious and investigate what's going on can be very helpful. Because when I got curious about my stall, I was able to see that I had been eating fewer and fewer calories along the way and was still not seeing the result. And so my answer became that I needed to reverse diet. I needed to adjust what was going on with my metabolic adaptation so that I was able to be at a better jumping off point for my next round of fat loss. So get curious rather than frustrated would be the thing that I would say. So I just wanted to introduce to you guys this phrase, involuntary maintenance, and I would suggest that you use it instead of the word stall. Sorry, Mike, I'm stealing your word, giving it to other people, like Robin Hood. All right. So everyone, enjoy your week. I will be back with you next week. And I'm lining up some new interviews, so you will get some lovely, lovely people in addition to hearing my dulcet tones on the weekly. But hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully these short episodes, these little snippets, give you a little kick in the keister. You need them to reset your thinking and to make things move a little better in your life. We're entering into the holiday season as I record this. It's the beginning of November. So I know we all need a little bit of support these days, and I'll be here if you need me. Hopefully you know where you can find me. I'm at Keto Life Support on Facebook. I've also got a YouTube channel. I'm all sorts of places. You can go to my website, check it out, kimhowerton.com. Let me know what you want, need. I'll be there. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.